Greetings, pilots and passengers. Welcome back to the next episode of the Dare to Talk podcast. With me today is Toronto-based psychic medium Carolyn Molnar. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
You have a great deal of experience being a psychic medium, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Born with it.
Could you speak a little bit about who you are and your experience and what you've been doing over the years?
Basically, I've had this gift, and I call it a gift, all my life. It runs in the family, and I can thank my parents on both sides for being interested, exposed, and supportive of the work. So I had a lot of backup in the family situation. I had a normal life. I didn't think that anything was unusual. I look back and I think, yeah, it's unusual. My first experience with my spirit guides was in around when I was 8, when I had a visit from them when they decided to heal me because I wasn't feeling very well. So that was kind of fun. And then my first reading, I think, was around age 17. Then I was, then I met my mentor who trained me for 20 years. Her name is Reverend Sadie Nickerson. She passed into spirit in 2001. So I've dedicated my work to her. Though I was thrown into this actually to become a professional, because in around 2000, even though I've been doing this for over 40 years, not professionally, but since 2000 I have. I used to be an office administrator, working for vice presidents and presidents, keeping them on track with their schedules, very left brain work. And I was temping at the time because my kids were young and I wanted to make sure I was home with them when I could be. And all of a sudden, all the jobs dried up. I guess we were going into some kind of recession. I don't remember. But I thought the only thing I have left is being able to read. So read for people. So that's how I started. I went into it kicking and screaming. Economics won out. So I've done that. I now have been on several television shows. I've been on quite a few podcasts. It's all on my website, carolynmolnar.com. I also want to show you my newest book.
Yeah.
What? You're a medium? And that was on my, based on my 2016 Toronto Fringe Theatre Festival play that was done. And my husband and I wrote it. He's a professional writer, so it's a labor of love. And I also teach psychic development and mediumship, and I believe that we should all be very comfortable working with our spirit guides before getting into mediumship. So I always say psychic development first, mediumship follows. So that's pretty much what I've been up to of late.
Awesome. Yeah. So a couple of things there. For people watching, could you sort of explain the difference between being a psychic and being a medium?
Sure, there is a big difference. Psychics are those who talk about your life, your health, whether you're going to get a job, promotion, the here and now. Sometimes they can get into past lives as well. A psychic is not necessarily a medium, and a medium is not necessarily a psychic. A medium talks to dead people only. So your loved ones in spirit, that's who the medium connects with to give evidence that it's them through their, they talk about their personality. They talk about the things that have happened since they've passed, because they're still part of your lives. Things that happened before they passed away. Sometimes they come in asking for forgiveness. Sometimes they come in and just say, thank you for remembering me. And yes, it was my birthday and I love the cupcake. So that's the big, big difference between the two.
So did you you said you were always sort of had a connection to spirit. As you mentioned there, the difference between being a psychic and a medium. Did you sort of begin heading straight away down the medium path, or was it sort of more being psychic at first?
Well, I was psychic at first. I remember my very first reading was a cartoon in my head, my active imagination. Clairvoyance is my first gift. So I saw a red car with snow on it. And I told my mentor, I said, I think, Sadie, you're going to be getting a red car. And it was moving into the spring. And she said, I'm not going to get a new car. I just got a new one. Well, anyways, it was May. Her car broke down. Her son took her over to a used car lot. There was a red car in May with snow on it. Well, she called me because she bought it. She called me back. She said, I am so sorry. She said, your reading was accurate. So that's how I started. And mediumship came a lot later because I worked as a student in Lilydale, New York, which is the largest spiritualist community in the world. And I got up to the Stump, which is a place where everybody meets. There could be up to 400 people in the audience. And I was giving psychic messages all over the place. I was so proud of myself. And the medium took me inside and said, we don't give messages like this. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, no, we only talk to those who've passed away. And I was so shocked. I said, oh, okay. And then the next day I started doing that. So it just kind of happened. It was a series of unfortunate incidences that got me to be a medium.
Yeah. So when you were little, you said you had an experience, which was your first communication with your spirit guides. Could you sort of delve a little bit into that?
Sure. Well, if you haven't figured it out by now, I was a real character. My mother used to call me Sarah Heartburn after Sarah Bernhardt, which was who was an actress. Anyway, so I was like, oh my God, I'm so sick. I was about 8. I was so stuffed up. My mother said after lunch, go to bed. And I went, I don't want to go to bed. Go to bed. So anyways, I went upstairs to my room and I laid down and put my hands over my chest. And I said, just take me now. I'm so sick. Right. So with that, I closed my eyes. And my bedroom door opened and shut with a click. So, the door shut and it had, there was a need for the handle to turn in order for the door to open 12 times. And then in my mind, I could see these white pillars all the way around my bed. And then I promptly fell asleep. And when I woke up, I was well again. So I figured they wanted to keep me here for a little while longer. So that was my first experience. And they have changed over time according to where I am in my soul progression and the needs for my clients. And I'm with them constantly. There's never any time that I can't ask them something that I hear them or sense them. So they've not left me. One of the books that I wrote, It Is Time, Knowledge from the Other Side, actually was channeled. And it was channeled by 3 entities who no longer work with me because the book was created and done and their purpose was finished. So they moved on. And
so were they there for helping you to channel that, creating that book?
Yes. That's all they were there for. And mind you, that was a big task. It was done over 11 weeks. Weekly, I would sit in trance and channel this book. So yeah, so they're with me constantly. Also, Sadie is with me. She's not a guide; she's a guardian. So she is someone who had human form and has a finite amount of information and has a lot of interest and connection with me. So oftentimes she shows up in classes. They used to see like a white sort of form behind me, and they would. Some of the students could recognize her. Others would ask who it was, and I'd say it's probably Sadie. So yeah, they don't.
Did she come into your life at a specific point?
Yes, she did. I had a horrific reading with a psychic medium who was very well known by the police. They used her gifts to find lost children or whatever they needed her for, and she was very accurate. So my sister said, let's go have a reading. And I went, all right. So we went to a very nondescript area, into like a suburban area in Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada. She's no longer living, so don't worry about trying to get a reading with her. She's not around anymore. This was quite a long time ago. And she presented a reading that absolutely horrified me. I was like almost fainting, and things were actually moving around the room. Like, I don't know whether you're so young for this, but they're rabbit ears that would be on top of a television set. And those were the antennas for the TV. We didn't have cable back then. They were scratching the walls. They were moving back.
Wow.
The candles were jumping. And she kept looking around going, what is this about? I've never seen this before. And in hindsight, I'm thinking, they wanted me out of there. So I was so upset. I went for retail therapy. I went to a local department store. I picked up a set of sheets that were the small single size. And out of my mouth came, I've got to find a medium. I'm thinking, where'd that come from? I called my father. He said, well, I'll take you to my medium. And I went, your medium? You have a medium? He goes, yeah, I've been seeing her for quite a few years. He took me to her. I sat down in her kitchen. She took my hands and I burst into tears. And she said, let's start again. And she proceeded to give me the most accurate reading. She said, what happened before, just let it go. Here's what I have to give you. And it was totally different. So be very, very careful who you ask to do readings.
Do you think, was the first reading the bad reading because of the energies of the person giving you the reading? Do you think?
Yes, I do, because, and I don't think it's a fault of hers, it's the kind of work that she did. Very negative. Finding dead people, like murdered people, murdered children. I mean, that has to do something to you. And if that's the kind of energy she was working with a lot, I think that it might have affected all of her readings. That's just a hypothesis. I'm not sure. She was genuine with her, with her sincerity. And she was very well known and highly respected. She just wasn't the medium for me.
Right. So
actually, she did more psychic work, I have to say that.
Oh, fair enough. So your dad had said that he had a medium. So it sounds like a lot of your family are quite spiritual or have been quite spiritual and open-minded to it.
Oh, very much so. It's actually, I can tell you on both sides of the family. My father has an Irish background. Last name of Kelly, you can't deny it. And his father used to see a psychic weekly. I don't recommend that. I say to my clients every 6 months, I'm not going to be able to give you anything new otherwise. So don't waste your time or your energy. So he was brought up like that. My mother's side of the family, her parents, who used to go to Lilydale as well, had Jenny Wilder, who was the medium to a prime minister, Mackenzie King, Canadian prime minister. And they used to have trumpet seances where they would call in the spirits with a trumpet. And her biggest complaint was ectoplasm on the chairs in the dining room. She was not allowed to sit in because she was 16 at the time. But so it's on both sides of the family. And I do think that that was why I chose my family, because there was a genetic predisposition to acceptance and also the gift. So, yeah.
So, who in your family has other than you, has quite a strong gift, would you say?
All my siblings and my children. My second husband is also a medium. My first husband, very good with numbers. He used to say he'd make a guesstimate because he used to work for on his own, and he'd have to give estimates to clients, and he was spot on. So we all had our own gifts. But I know when I first started reading, because Sadie told me to read the Urantia book, which is a 2,100-page tome that was channeled. Anybody looking it up, it's Urantia book. It was written in the 50s, and it is kind of that era. but anyway, I used to read it, compelled to read it, and it would be 2 paragraphs one night and I couldn't get past it. Then I'd go to sleep, get taught, and then go back the next day and read more, and it could be several chapters. And during this time, my first husband's in another room doing his work, and he's listening to me either laughing, chuckling, saying something, or even crying. There are times that I cried, and he said to me, Carolyn, if I didn't know you any better, I think you were nuts. So this was well in the 80s that I was, reading this book, and it took me over a year to finish it, but I was absolutely compelled, and it has been helpful to my understanding of the spirit world.
So in one of your own books, actually, your recent book, the What, You're a Medium, one of the chapter titles or sections is called Seances at My Grandparents' House. So what's that all about?
Well, yeah, actually that's what was happening, is that my grandparents would have the dining room and the trumpet flying around. And do you know what a trumpet looks like?
I do not.
Okay.
Do you mean like a literal trumpet, like a musical instrument?
No. May I show it to you?
Of course, yes.
For a minute. One moment.
Of course.
Okay, so it is a very wide at this end, and it comes out. It's quite long, and I have phosphorescent paint, because these things that happen are in the dark. The seances are in the dark. I am not a trumpet medium, but I was so intrigued by it, I had to buy one. And what it does is it is held by the ectoplasm of the trance medium, and the spirit speak through the larger end. This is a spiritualist instrument. A lot of spiritualist churches know about this, so I just had to have one, not that I use it. I have put it out for my students, and in the dark, we've actually seen, ectoplasm coming out of the top of the trumpet, but we haven't had any apparitions appear or anything like that. We don't have the practice.
Have you seen apparitions appear before in
Absolutely.
other sessions?
I've always said to spirit, don't show me yourself. I'm not interested in that. I mean, I don't mind in my active imagination, but I don't want Uncle George showing up in the corner. It's just so, to me, that's like a psychic assault. No, thank you. So, but I have seen it with a medium, actually, a trance medium, physical medium, out of England. And he was sitting in a cabinet, which contains the energy. It looks like a small closet. The front was open, and there was a table in front. It's actually described as the ectoplasmic hand in my book.
Yeah.
And there was this sort of black, smoky energy that came out of the closet, and it rested on the table. And then I started watching it form, and it was a webbed hand. And then it went into like a man's hand, and it was Walter's hand. He's one of the trance mediums, spirit people. Anyways, he said, would you like me to touch your hand? And I said, sure, Walter. And he did. He touched my hand like this, and it was warmer than mine, and it was solid. And he also took his hand, he went boom, boom on the table. You could hear it knocking. So that is as close as I've ever gotten to a full-on apparition. It was fantastic.
That sounds absolutely amazing.
It is. I am so lucky and blessed to have met such amazing, gifted people they're all about continuity of life, proof of the afterlife. Yeah.
What has been your favorite experience with spirit so far, would you say? I know it's a tricky question to ask and answer. But...
I know. I have to say this. I will give you a story, and it's so mundane, but I love it because it reminds me that they're with me, and constantly. Like, say, for instance, this morning I heard, you better get the bio to Emily. they just talked to me like that. And I went, oh my God, I forgot. So I sent it off. I always listen to them. There's no point in not. Anyways, I'm driving on the road and I'm on a very busy street in Toronto. And they all of a sudden yelled at me, get out of the lane. And I moved from one lane to the next. And in a split second from me moving out of the lane, a woman crossed the lane that I was in. She was walking. A car jammed on its brakes, and the car that was behind me that took my place smashed into the back of the car.
Wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, there, but for the grace of God, and they are like that for me all the time. Why? Because I listen to them. I acknowledge them. So, yeah, and I'm sure there are so many more stories I wish I would remember. I know one. Oh, man. Okay, so when Sadie passed away, I was actually the last person to see her. This is a long story, so cut me off anytime, okay? So I was the last person to see her. I had to actually drive out of town to see her. And she passed the next day, and her son called me and said, would you please do the eulogy? Long story short, I agreed. So then he told me he would get back to me because one of his family members was predisposed with school and writing or marking exams and all that stuff. So anyways, he called me at 10 o'clock in a night, and I usually don't answer the phone that late. I'm usually in bed. So I happen to pick up the phone. He says, we're going to have the funeral tomorrow. And I was like, oh my God, I don't have the eulogy done. So I got off the phone. I said, okay, Sadie, you got to write the eulogy for me. Wake me up early in the morning and we'll do it. 2 o'clock in the morning, she wakes me up. I said, come on, Sadie, it's 2 a.m. Wake me up at 6. She woke me up spot on at 6. I went down to the computer. I put my hands on the keys. She wrote her eulogy, 3 pages, double space, typed, not a single grammar mistake. There was only one thing I asked her to do, and that was to add one of the people in her family she didn't really like the eulogy, and she was like, quack, 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 quack. She wasn't very happy about it. So anyways, she did. The paragraph was perfect. So I get in the car. It's July, and I know it's too warm to wear. I don't have any air conditioning in the car. Too warm to wear my funeral outfit. So I had to stop. It caused me to be late. She's sitting in the passenger seat of the car, laughing her head off. She said, we're going to be late for my funeral. I said, I know, it's not funny. Anyway, I get there. The son's eyes are like as big as saucers going, are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm so sorry I'm late. It's a long story. Would you like to see Sadie? And I said, no, thank you. I'm thinking, I'm already seeing her, right? I don't need to see her. So I get up to do the eulogy, and I spoke, not a tear. I didn't catch myself up. It flowed. And then I get off the podium. The thing is, the ceremony is done. And 3 of her older lady friends come up and said, how do you know her so well? She's so private. And I'm thinking to myself, if you only knew. Then there's more. So then we get to the place where, the wake where we have tea and coffee and sandwiches. She's standing beside me saying, that's so-and-so, just call her by name. So I've never met them before. I'm shaking their hand. How nice to meet you, so-and-so. And they're like, how did you know me? She's at her funeral telling me all this stuff. It was wonderful. So, honestly, I miss her in a sense that she's not physically here, but I don't really miss her because she's always with me. So that's the joy of being a medium and hearing from your spirit loved ones. There's no death. As a matter of fact, she's more with me now than she was when she was here because she was in a different city. So yeah, that's one of my favorite stories.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I think the best experiences are ones where you don't expect it, or it's like a little sort of message of maybe. I think one of my favorites was I was having a really bad day at uni, and I always had to get the train to uni. It's like, it's raining, and I had to watch the train station in the rain, and I got there. and I on the opposite platform, everyone was wearing yellow coats. And to me, the colour yellow is associated with my uncle because every time I sort of see him in my head, he wears a yellow jumper. So all day I just saw people in yellow coats more than, you would normally notice. And it's just like little things like that. I think if more people paid attention and were just receptive and understood that if they had an open mind, I think they'd be surprised at the things they would pick up on.
It's so true. As a matter of fact, I have a couple of YouTube videos, maybe even 3, called Signs from Spirit. And this is something that people can refer to find out what spirit does in order to be noticed. One of the nicest ones is, when you get the goosebumps up the back of your arm and up your back, that's a spirit hug. Sometimes in Canada, we don't have pennies anymore. It used to be pennies. I'll find dimes in weird places, like you'll vacuum and you'll come back in and you go, where'd that dime come from? And that is a gift from spirit. So I hold on to them. I keep them in little places. And if you know what you're looking for, you'll realize how active they are with you.
Speaking of how people can sort of start a spiritual journey for those who may be embarking on one, what would be your advice to them?
I would try to get some teachings. I know that, well, I do teach, but there are spiritualist churches that have circles. I would, if you want to connect with your spirit people, I would definitely meditate, because you raise your vibration, they lower theirs. And when the two energies touch, there's communication. I think it's really important to have as quiet and peaceful a life, and that's hard to do, so that you can actually hear them. And then the quiet and the peace doesn't matter anymore, because you've locked into what it feels like, what it sounds like, so that you'll know that you're just not alone. You don't have to be alone.
You mentioned being a part of a circle there. Are you part of a spiritual development circle?
I actually teach the circle. I used to be, when I was in training, I was in a spiritualist church, and that's how I started my training. I took workshops at Arthur Findlay College at Stansted in the UK. I've been at Lilydale, New York. I think I trained for probably 5 years and then taught for 9. I took courses in the US elsewhere, and also in Canada. So there are places, and they usually stem from the spiritualist churches. And I know that they have websites, so you can find them online. It's hard now with the pandemic, but what I found is that I was really adverse at having like Zoom classes, but I am absolutely amazed at how accurate and connected we can be, even over the internet.
Definitely.
Try it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that is more important now than ever as well, for other human contact outside of family, I think, anyway, because I think you can get a bit, when you're a bit close with your family for so long, you start annoying each other.
Or those who are alone altogether, they
Exactly.
connect. Yes, we are a gregarious bunch. Mm-hmm.
So how do you protect yourself when you communicate with spirit? What do you do for protection?
Well, first of all, I have a prayer where I ask the highest, the purest, and the best to come through and surround me with white light. I not only protect myself from the spirit world, but I also, because I don't go through my guides to get to the spirit, I want to actually sense them and their experience, so that it's not overwhelming for me. I also do it with the energy of the client that I'm working with. So, that protection is important as well. I also, when I read, I wear this. It's called a zebra jasper.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like actually found me. It was in one of these what do you call them? It's like a big crystal show, and
Like
here
a
we have it.
fair.
Yeah, and we have them in arenas. So, anyways, I saw a box of stones, and this was one of them. And I went, "Oh, you're pretty, but." And I walked around the arena, and it kept calling me back. And I said, "Okay, all right." So I picked it up, and I took it over to somebody who was known as a reader. I didn't tell her who I was. I just wanted to be neutral. She said, "Oh, that's a shield. That'll be very good for you." And it actually is right at the heart chakra. The other thing I do is when I read, I light candles, because that's also an indicator and for spirit to come in. But prayer and that crystal is what I use for protection.
Have you ever had any negative experiences with spirit?
Not professionally. Personally, yes. There are a couple of people I just will not answer to. And when one of them passed to spirit, they came after me, and I was able to get rid of them through my guides. I asked them to escort this person back to wherever they were before, and not to bother me again. And I think this person passed in late, early 2000s, and I perhaps have heard from them once or twice, but I was able to just, ask them to leave, and it was effective. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing a lot of people, because I've seen things of, you hear stories of people who've had bad experiences, and I think sometimes they either don't really, because they go down the physical route
Yes.
when it comes with, like Ouija boards or table
Yes.
tipping.
Well, table tipping's not too bad, but stay away from Ouija boards. The table tipping, if it's done by a high energy medium with the intention that it is to show spirit's presence, that's one thing. It's the intention that um, rallies the energies. But Ouija boards, forget it. It's a game. It's a portal. And I remember as a child, mirrors are also portals. And as a child, I went to like an overnight birthday party, and one of the kids wanted to summon somebody through the mirror. I think I was maybe 9 or 10 at the time. And I said, "If you do that, I'm leaving." And I went upstairs and I reported it. And so they stopped doing it. So it's all about, how you treat the spirit world. Be very, very careful. Be very respectful.
I think it's about intent as well.
Big time. Intention is
yeah.
huge. Now, I'll tell you this. I no longer go into bars because of the energies that have been left behind. I mean, if it's a family pub, whatever, that's fine. But hospitals are hard for me. I will go, but major protection. Cemeteries, I don't bother anymore, because I've had energies wanting to come home with me. And also one other place, funeral homes. I have to really be careful, protect myself. So, because they see you coming and they're like, "Oh my gosh, she can hear us. Oh, I need something to be said." And it's like, no, I'm on holiday here. I'm not working. Just stay with your family, that kind of thing. So there is that. I don't find it too much of an problem, because I know what to do with it.
She's been a bit like a beacon walking around,
Yes.
like a lighthouse.
Yes, exactly. I've used that scenario with my students. Your lights are different because of your intention and your work. Mm-hmm.
So in your book as well, you have mentioned about psychic scams in one section.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I agree that I think it is still a very big problem. I know of quite a few situations that have happened to people I know. And I think people still, and I think even people you least expect as well, do still fall victim to them.
Yes. Well, what these scammers do is they gain your trust. They'll give you a fantastic reading. Like, how can you be that accurate? That's amazing. And then they'll say something like, well, you have a curse on you. And for $600, I'll be able to take the curse off you. Or your money's cursed. If you can give me $2,000, I'll clean the money and give it back to you. Well, you never see it again. So I've listed probably 8 or 9 things that you need to watch for with a psychic scam. It's all listed in the book. And I'll tell you, these people make my job so much easier, because it's almost like some people, I've had experiences with them, come to me and then go, okay, so prove it to me. And if they're like that, I can't. Spirit's like, I'm not into this. I don't need to prove anything. Either you listen or you're out of here. But, I understand how they feel. It's a terrible thing, and it's out there. There was a story of a lawyer here in Toronto who's duped out of a 6-figure income. Did you just see the white orbit?
I did. I just watched it go across you then.
That's a spirit. I hope it shows up.
It did. It did show up. Caught that. That's cool.
See, it's probably Sadie. But anyway, he was duped out of a 6-figure income, and also a very high-end car, because this psychic was going to clear the energy so that he would be successful. This gentleman, this lawyer, would be successful in all of his work. Well, he sued this psychic for fraud, and the psychic was jailed for it. So it's still out there. It doesn't matter what kind of education you have. You just got to be careful. And if you feel uneasy or unsure, or you are asked for more money than the initial amount you're asked for, if you're asked to buy a $200 candle to clear energy, no, not to do it. Go to the dollar store, buy yourself a candle, put the intention on it, and for $1 you'll have the same thing. So be very careful.
Do you? In my experience, I think I always sort of get a sense of who is genuine and who isn't. Do you have a similar thing of you can sort of, before you even meet them, or even if you just saw them online or something, get that sense of whether they're trying to scam people or not?
I've actually experienced it in person at a spiritualist church, believe it or not. My solar plexus went like that. It just tightened right up, and I felt like I was going to double over. I felt so nauseous from them. They had actually pumped me full of questions prior to a service, and then got up and rehashed everything that they asked me about. Right?
Oh my God, really?
That's
really bad.
That is bad. And yes, one of the gifts that I have is I can look at photographs, and I can tell you the personality of the person and what their intention is. So
is there a certain name for that?
It's a form of psychometry, actually. The energy of the photograph holds the energy of the person. So, I think it's in Australia, the Maoris, I believe, don't quote me on this, they don't like their pictures taken because they feel like a piece of their soul is in the photograph. There's some truth to that. Yeah.
When did you discover you could do that?
It was a natural evolution. Sadie didn't teach me. I just felt like I was compelled to look at a photograph because I just needed to kind of get in touch with someone, and it just evolved. You start small, and then it just works into, a wonderful gift of connecting with spirit. It was over a long period of time.
Wow, that's really incredible. So one part of, one big thing I think I've seen a fair bit of at the moment, and I think partially because of lockdown, people are delving more into the spiritual world, is astral projection and out-of-body experiences. Not just in a sense of people are looking to have them or are quite curious about it, but I think more people seem to be having these experiences and are more open to discussing it. Have you had any experiences with that in any way?
Yes, through my clients, they will, set up a session, say, what the heck just happened here? I've never had this before. So here's my theory on it. Because a lot of us have had to slow down, we're now becoming human beings instead of human doings. It allows us to tap into our spirituality, something we've always had. I mean, if you have a soul, you have a spirituality, not a religion, spirituality. So we start to just have more time to notice. And some of us are deciding, well, I've got time. Why don't I meditate? Well, if you meditate, you become more open to, your spirituality. So yes, and I feel it's part of the enlightenment. I know it's hard to believe that COVID is part of enlightenment, but it has given us opportunity to stop, look, and listen. And also to decide what is the most important thing in our life. We have not put a lot of focus and importance on our health unless we were sick, right? So this is another thing that the enlightenment has shown us, is that our health is extremely important. I know there's a lot of negativity with the pandemic. Please understand, I understand that, but I'm trying to go to that place of spirituality and why. And I'm coming up with these answers from my own intuitive self, but also from spirit. And I think it's also opening up people to their spirituality because they have the time.
Do you think because of this, the world will be a very different place in the future as a result of people having more time during the lockdowns and pandemic now, being able to discover their spirituality a bit more?
I hope so. I hope people don't forget when they start to get busy again. I hope it's part of their DNA, so to speak, and their lifestyle when things start to ramp up again. That's my only concern. But this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. It started in 2000. And this is part of the movement from a Piscean era, which is of war, and to Aquarian, which is more about peace. It's the song it says it all, right? And it really started in the 50s, and it won't be finished until 2050. It's about 100-year progression, but as you can see, we're right in the middle of it. So hopefully we will learn from this, hold on to it, and move forward in a better way.
Do you think as well maybe some of the enlightenment or awakening is also linked to the recent Great Conjunction we had?
I don't follow astrology very much. I'll be completely honest with you, but I know that astrology plays a big part of our world.
For definite, because I know a lot of people personally who I know had very funny feelings around that time in terms of the energy, and a lot of people were speaking of like feeling a bit different around that time.
Yes, that I have to say, I feel like the sun, the planets, they all play a role in our spirituality and health, for sure. Solar flares are another big thing that really mess things up too. Not only ourselves, but also the electronics, and that's really been playing havoc. And as well, the moon has a big pull because it affects water, and we're mostly water, so we will have those things happen to us as well.
Definitely. I think people in general as well, I would add to that. Just the energies of other people.
Yeah, there are a lot of, I'll tell you one thing that my students are having issues with, and that is anxiety. And it's not theirs. Because I say to them, if it isn't yours, taken away. And they find that they are relieved by just saying that. So what I've said to them is that they're probably being a way of processing the anxiety off the planet. there's a lot of it right now, and it's just blanketing the earth, and somehow it needs to be dissipated. So a lot of enlightened people and sensitives are now becoming beacons of, release of anxiety. I have a meditation on my website called A Gift from Me to You, and it's about clearing the energy in your space, especially in the bedroom. When you wake up with anxiety, you go to bed with anxiety, it stays there. And this is a meditation to get rid of it. And I find that I do sleep better once I've used it.
Definitely. I think if more people even did 20 minutes of meditation a day, not even that, they would feel much better. I mean, that's one of the things I've tried to do anyway. And I definitely think you feel a lot more relaxed and just calm.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I think the problem is that people say, I don't have time. I can't put it in my day. So what I say is 20 minutes before you go to bed, and let it help you fall asleep, because you have to go to bed anyway. So just meditate when you're in bed, and that's good enough. I've said to my students, if you want to do well with spirituality, meditate same time, same place every day. Same time because you're making a date with your guides. Same time, same place, because you're creating energy where you can be in it, and it becomes stronger for you, and you're able to meditate better or longer or clearer. And then every day is just a matter of practice.
I think that definitely makes sense. I think it definitely applies with having a spiritual development circle, because obviously you do that same time, same place each week.
Yes, part of the class is meditating. We start with a prayer for protection, and then the meditation gets them linked either into their spirit guides or spirit people, depending on which class I am teaching at the moment.
So if you could say anything at all to the people watching, anything whatsoever, your message, what would that be?
The work that we strive to do is real. Please use your intuitive self or your gut feeling or anything that you experience that either draws you to a psychic or repels you as the answer to what you should be doing when you choose to sit with somebody. Also ask for references. So maybe your friends have really met somebody wonderful. That is a good start to meeting a psychic and a medium. Remember, because the medium and the psychic needs the energy of the person they're reading for, some psychics and mediums are better for some and not so great for others. It's got to do with how the energy meshes. I had a situation just last week where I just couldn't read for them. I watched John Edward, and I was actually shown this prior to the reading, and I didn't put two and two together until I had the experience where John Edward was on Oprah, and he could not read for one, but could read for three others. And he says, sometimes this just happens, the energies just don't come together. And I had the same experience. And thankfully, in the old days, I would have said, that's it, I give up, I've had enough of this. If you're not going to help me, but I used to judge my life like that. But then I realized, no, this isn't about them. This is about the energies meshing. And sometimes it's just not going to happen. And just understand that it doesn't make the psychic or medium a bad person. It's not working. Find somebody else.
Do you think as well, going in, being open-minded and open to receiving a reading will sort of help with that?
It definitely helps. Expectations make such a mess. The people that are so like, I've got to see you today. And of course, I'm booked. So I say, well, you'll have to book an appointment. They're usually the ones that have such expectations, and they're so hardwired to getting a specific answer with certain words, or the ones that say, well, you got to give me the code word in order for me to know that you're real. I don't work that way. If spirit doesn't give me the code word, forget it. You have to be open-minded, kind, and generous with your energy in order for this to work. It's a two-way street.
Definitely. So how can people find out more about you, find more information and who you are and your books, find them?
Well, two places I would recommend. My website is Carolyn Molnar, that's Carolyn, Molnar, MOLNAR.com. There you can find the books and the CDs. You can also subscribe to my newsletter. There are also those 2 free meditations on the site. And you can get a lot of information about who I am. And if you want to book a session, you do it through my website, as well as my YouTube channel. There's over 350 clips now and climbing of questions from those who email me. You can email me through my website. If it's something that helps the community, then I'm willing to write it up and have it ready for a YouTube video. So those are the 2 big things. YouTube, Carolyn Molnar, you'll find me there, or my website, carolynmolnar.com.
Awesome. I'll put the links to all of that in the description box below and in the pinned comment of the video so people can find it. So thank you so much for coming to speak with me today. It has been an absolute pleasure, and it's amazing to hear your experiences and how your journey has gone for you. And I think it will help a lot of people, because there are a lot of people out there at the moment who are really questioning things and wondering what's going on.
Well, that's my purpose, is to provide hope where there is despair and to educate whenever I can.
Good. Amazing. Thank you so much for speaking with me.